This is my third video, my top 50 comic books. Stay tuned to see what they are. Hey YouTube, it's Matt here. Now, if you have not seen my two other videos, this is my third video on my top 50 comic books. So, the first two I did 50 to 49 and I did 40 to 31. But if you haven't seen the other videos, I have to remind you, or I have to tell you, not remind you, this is not in any particular order. These are just 50 of my favorite comic books that are in slabs. I decided to not go looking through my long boxes to find, my favorite raw books. So I just chose my top 50 slabbed comic books. And number 30, New Mutants. Number 98, first appearance of Deadpool. Love this book. Great cover on the back. But this is, somehow this is number 30, but it might be a little higher, it might be a little lower. I don't know. It really is hard to judge 50 because it's easy if you just do value, but I don't value my comic books just on money, so that's why I don't really know what order these books are in, because there's nostalgia that goes into it, there's family, connection, there's do I really like the story? There's a lot goes into my comic book collecting, more than just the dollars and cents. New Mutants number 98 is one of the most popular books out there, a large print run. What really amazes me is that there is a 10 and 12 9.9s along with 3,000 9.8s. This book is not in short supply by any means. Here's the next book. This is Avenging SpiderMan number 9, the first appearance of Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. Kind of a big book. This is a book that I had wanted in the collection because it's a pseudo first appearance. I mean, Carol Danvers has been around for a long time. So is Captain Marvel, but not Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. Now, I only have a 9.4 and there's 254 copies of that. I'm happy with my 9.4. I don't think I'll ever upgrade this book. Next one. A lot of people are not going to know this book. This is the 1 in 500 variant for the 2019 Conan the Barbarian number 1. I was just doing some math. There was 108,000 books sold for Conan the Barbarian number 1 when it came out again in 2019. This being a 1 in 500 variant, I figured out there can be 216 total books of this cover, but that's not true, because not every single LCS was able to buy 500 copies. So I don't know what the total print run of this cover is, but it has to be less than 215. And if I had to guess, I'll just randomize it, I would say clearly less than 100 copies of this cover. I talked about the low print run of this book, 216 maximum copies. There's nowhere near 216. Just because LCSs were not all able to buy the 500, like I said. In the CGC census, there are a total of 13 books graded, period. That includes signed yellow labels and the blue labels. So if the Netflix Conan the Barbarian series becomes any good and it piques interest, I see this book being very highly sought. This is the first appearance of my favorite childhood villain. I grew up watching SpiderMan and His Amazing Friends with Firestar and Iceman. I loved the episode that had the Hobgoblin on it. It was just, I look back upon those cartoons now, because you can find them on Disney+. They seem hard to watch for me. But whenever 1980 came out and that show was on TV, that was probably the best show out there. I loved watching that on Saturday mornings, so I was glad to get this. And yes, this does have the tattoos insert in it. I'm never unhappy with a grade. This book displays extremely well for an 8.0. It would have a higher grade, but there is a small tear, and the tear is about an inch on the back cover. That drops this book, I truly believe it would have been a 9.4, all the way down to that 8.0. Next book. Now, I had another copy of this book. This one is a newsstand. This is the first appearance of Venom, Amazing Spider-Man number 300. Just enjoyed this book a lot. This book right here is one of the most highly graded books of all time. In fact, I think I read somewhere it is the highest graded book of all time. This is my second copy. I do have another copy in the collection. I did have 3, but in order to buy some of the books that I wanted to get this year, I had to sell a lot. Well, I ended up selling my third copy of Amazing Spider-Man 300. I love the black suit story of Spider-Man. To me, it's just a really cool idea. But this is the first appearance of what becomes this guy, Venom. Okay, so this came out in Secret Wars number 8, 1984. This is not the first appearance of the black suit, as in what came out chronologically. But in storyline, this is how the black suit came to be. If you guys watch all 5 of the videos on my top 50 comic books, this being the third video, you will see a common theme that I love the black suit story, the Spider-Man black suit story. It created Venom, it created Carnage, it created Toxin, Null, and so forth and so forth. So many great stories came out of the black suit. This book being, my opinion, what started it all. Next up is the first appearance of Blade in Tomb of Dracula number 10. Now, there's a little bit of story to this, okay? I've just recently learned, within the last year, I bought a press to learn how to press my own comic books. I've had some success with it, but I got a little cocky on myself. Whenever I was pressing this book about a year ago, I had 2 copies of Tomb of Dracula number 10. This one being the better copy, but I accidentally mishandled the book and I ended up pulling this cover off of the staples. This book ended up coming back at a 2.5. It displays extremely well for a 2.5. I actually think this could have been a 6 to 7 if I didn't pull the cover off. But what I'm talking about is I had the other one. It had a whole bunch of gunk on the cover and like color break, and there was this adhesive on it that I was cleaning, and I didn't do a very good job on it, okay? That book looked a lot worse, but it was a 3.0. I ended up selling that book that was higher grade and keeping the lower grade one because I like how this one looks. It displays so much better. Remember I told you not all of my comic books are based upon value? This is a classic example. Sometimes I just want to see a great piece of, comic book history displayed. So, Tomb of Dracula, number 10. The character Blade is one of those characters that got a lot of people interested in comic books. Many people didn't even know that Blade was a comic book whenever the Wesley Snipes movies came out. This is a lower grade book. I don't care. I love the fact that I own the first appearance of Blade in my collection. Next book. This is a key first appearance. This is the first appearance of Carnage in Amazing Spider-Man 361. This is a newsprint. And back in 1992, newsprints were less than 6% of the total print run. So that makes this book relatively rare. There's some great Bagley art on this cover, and this is just a fun book to own. You've heard me mention that I love the Spider-Man Black Suit storyline, the storyline that led to Venom, which eventually led to Carnage, which had his first appearance in ASM 361. Such a fun book, such a fun character. It shocks me that there are over 6,300 copies of this book and a 9.6. A newer book into my collection is this Amazing Spider-Man 569. Love this book. I talk about it in other video, but what makes this book fun for me is my son loved playing with a toy that I had whenever he was just a young boy. and it was an anti-venom toy, and he told me all about this character. So because of that, I just love this book. This is one of those books that keeps on going up in value, and I see why. There's only 158 copies of this book and a 9.8. Again, this is one of those Black Suit storyline characters that came out of that storyline. So Anti-Venom, the first appearance of this, and Amazing Spider-Man 569, the second printing being the first cover appearance of Anti-Venom. Another book that came into my collection this year, this is a very iconic cover. This is Submariner #1 from 1968, where the origin was retold. This is the first Submariner titled series since the Golden Age. So, Submariner #1. Having books signed and pressed in the CGC Signature Series encapsulation is a new thing for my comic book collecting. I do like it if the signature is placed well and it's a marquee signature. Roy Thomas is the one who signed this. He also signed another book in my collection. So I hope you like this series of part of my top 50 comic books. If you like this content, hit that thumbs up, put a comment down below, and please hit that subscribe button. I want to thank everyone for watching, and you have a great day. Shut her down!